What's up, guys? Matt Montanez here, and today, yeah, you guessed it, I'm talking about the SSL G Master Bus Compressor by Waves. It's a great sounding plugin, just like all these other plugins that I show you guys, but this one here is one of my favorites. It stays, and it probably will forever stay permanently in my template. So whenever I get a new session to mix, I just import my template, and this bad boy is already there, ready to go, and all I have to do is dial in a few settings and we're ready to go, and I just keep mixing this record. The great thing about this plugin is it's very simple to use. It sounds great. It adds punch and warmth to a lot of things, you know, so you can slap this bad boy on your master bus, you can slap this bad boy on your drum bus, you can put it on pianos. I've even used it on vocals before, and it sounds great. It just adds a punch that sometimes you need it and it's missing, and you can just use this guy and it does it for you. So to get started with this plugin, when you pop it open, you see that you got your gain reduction meter, and this will show your gain reduction all the way to 20 dB. I like to keep it, when I'm using this compressor, I like to keep it between 2 and 4. I don't like to go heavy with this compressor. Using it subtly is the key to really making this guy work. Then you got your threshold knob, which goes from -15 to +15, and it gives you a lot of room to really use the compression to really set that threshold. You got your attack, which goes from 0.1 milliseconds to 30 milliseconds. And the cool thing about this attack time is you're not really dialing it in like the 1176, how you got this full spectrum to really work with. It just snaps into all these increments, and there's only 6 here. So it helps you really set an attack time fairly quickly. You got your ratio, and for the Waves SSL plugin, you got a 2:1, 4:1, and 10:1. For others, you get the 1.5 ratio. I like the 1.5 ratio. I think it sounds great, but for this one, I just used the 2:1, 4:1. I haven't had an instance where it's like, oh my gosh, I really need that 1.5 ratio. I've never had an instance like that, so 2:1 really works great. You go over here, you got your makeup gain, and you can go down to -5 dB, or you can go all the way up to +15. And, you know, so that's, like I said, again, a lot of wiggle room to use. And then on your release time, you got 5 bands to choose from, these increments. You got 0.1 second, and it goes to 1.2 seconds, and then also you have it auto, and the auto is just like how I explained in the SSL channel. It's what's putting into the plugin. It's program dependent, so it really works really cool. Very easy to set a release time, especially with the auto, so you shouldn't have a problem setting a release time. And then you got this thing here, which is called the Rate S. And what Rate S is, it's a fade in and a fade out, or a fade in or a fade out, and you get to toggle between the two with this button here. It's defaults on off. You click it once, it sets fade out. You click it again and it fades in to go to unity gain. And it starts from 1 second and it goes to 60 seconds. So you can choose on how fast you really want to set that fade, or how slow you really want to set that fade, I should say. And then you got your analog button, which gives you that analog noise. And then of course the in button, which bypasses the compressor pretty much. I'm going to play it on this record I mixed. It's by Carson Luters. It's called Try Me, and I use this plugin on the master bus, and it sounds great. So I'm actually going to put this to default, and I am going to dial in the settings so you can hear and see what I'm doing. The first thing I like to do when I bring in the song is I like to go to like the loudest part. Usually it's the hook. So I'm going to start this on the chorus, and then I'm going to dial in the settings. So the first thing I like to do is I like to set a fast attack and a fast release time. And then I like to set my threshold to really be going hard on it, like this. So you can hear that it's really compressing the heck out of this song. While it's doing that, you want to set your attack time, and you want to hear like, okay, what's really coming in, the transients, because, you know, if you have a fast attack, you're cutting off a lot of those transient, like the snare hit, you're cutting off the kicks and things like that. So you really, for master bus, I set a slow attack time. I usually like to start around 3 milliseconds, and then I go up to 30 and see which one sounds the best. I just go between the 3. Let's start at 3 milliseconds. And you can hear just real quick, just swipe going through the 3, you hear how much it opened up at 30 milliseconds. So I'm going to toggle between 10 and 30 this time. And I really like what it did at 10 because when I go to 30, it doesn't sound like it's really punching through. It's like you hear the kick and it's just a kick. But at 10 milliseconds, you can hear it like boom, and it's really coming through. I'm going to toggle between the two again and focus in on that kick hit. So I really like what 10 milliseconds is doing. Now I'm going to set my release time, and for the release you just want to listen to the end of the transient, so basically the tails of everything, like when the clap hits and the snares and the kick, you want to hear the tail of it all. For that too, I like to usually do a fast release, but because this has the auto setting, I like to toggle between all of them and just see what sounds best. And I like what it did right there at 0.3 seconds. Like, it really worked for something. Like, I'm going to toggle it again between all of them, and you'll hear like something just kind of comes out more. It's almost like with the longer release times, the bass is staying squished too long, but with the shorter ones, it comes out more. So let's do that. Let's stick at 0.3. And now I like to dial in the ratio, which on here I usually go between 2 and 4, just between the two since it's on the master bus. And it's not making too much of a difference, so I'm just going to leave it at 2. And then let's just set the threshold. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try. And then after I set the threshold, I'm just moving the makeup gain now so the level stays even, because you got your gain reduction. It's about 2 going up to 4. So I'm going to go about 2.5, maybe up to 3, but we'll just sit right there. I don't mess with the fade in and fade out really at all. I rarely use it, so I'm just going to leave it off and I won't play with it. Let's toggle between the bypass. Let's toggle the bypass on and off so you can really hear now the punch it's adding to this mix. Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't. And as I toggle it through, you can really hear that the bass is falling back behind the mix. The harmonies and the background vocals are really kind of just getting mushed into together once I toggle it off. And then also too, the piano kind of falls behind everything when I toggle it off. And that's what I'm talking about when I say the glue on your master bus. This is the glue, so it's keeping everything staying in its place and where it needs to stay at. So I'm going to do that again and focus on all those things on how it's falling apart. Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me, just try me. And that's what's really cool about this plugin, especially on the master bus, is that it keeps everything together real tight, and that's the glue, and that's what everybody wants to hear with this plugin on how it's doing that, how it's adding punch, it's adding warmth, and it's keeping things tight and in its place. That's the beauty of this SSL compressor on your master bus. I'm going to take this bad boy off the master bus, and let's throw it on just the drums so you can hear it as a drums bus compressor. So right here I have all my drums and they're all being routed to all music. I'm just going to route these and put them in auxiliary real quick as a all drums track. So now all my drums are going to this all drums track, and that's just going to the all music. And it just makes it easier so I can just slap this SSL compressor right on there. And let me just solo the drums so you can just hear these drums. You'll hear what it's going to do. It's going to add the punch. It's going to give it that warmth, and it's going to open things up and keep them in their place at the same time. So again, let's dial in some settings and let's do just the same technique. Let's bring the threshold down. Let's bring the fast attack, fast release, a high ratio. Let's keep the makeup gain back down to 0. and let's start dialing in a few settings. And now you can hear this time when I throw it on the all drums track, it actually sounds a lot better, in my opinion, on 30 milliseconds. To me, it doesn't really work at the 10 milliseconds. It sounds a little too fast, so I'm going to keep it on the 30 milliseconds. Now let's dial in a release time. And you hear as I went to a longer release time, everything kind of seemed like it was just too compressed. So I'm going to stick with the fast release on this one. Let's actually hear auto too. I actually like what auto is doing there. Even though everything sounds more compressed, I like that. And let's mess with the threshold, and I'll just put the ratio down to 4. And that sounds great. Now let's toggle the bypass on and off so you can hear that punch, that warmth, and this great compressor, what it's doing to these drums. And once again, as soon as I bypass it, everything kind of just gets tucked back, you know. Let me do it again, but this time I'm gonna have all the music going, and then you can hear the drums in the music together. Know that you just my type, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me. So once I bypass it, those kicks just get tucked back behind everything. And here it is again. I'm gonna leave it on, and then I'm gonna toggle it off, and you hear the drums just fall back. Know that you just my type, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you. And that's the beauty about this compressor. Like I said, it's adding that punch, it's bringing everything out, and it's keeping things in their place where they need to be. So it's a very cool plugin. Let's do it on the piano now, because a lot of people use it on the piano. It's very popular there. And this track happens to have a piano in it. So let's do that. So I believe this is the piano here. Let me hear it real quick. Yes, it is. So let's add the compressor right here on this piano, and let's see what it sounds like. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me, just try me. 'Cause all I see is you, and there is nothing left for me to. And it sounds amazing. It's doing the same thing where it's really keeping it in its place and bringing it out a lot. I'm gonna bring the makeup gain back to 0 so you can hear that it's not the makeup gain, it's actually what the plugin is doing to this sound. Know that you just my type, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me, just try me. 'Cause all I see is you. And it's so subtle, but you can hear it. It gets tucked back a little bit when this plugin is bypassed. The piano's not punching through the mix anymore. And just for fun, let's put this bad boy on some vocals so you can hear how it sounds on this lead vocal here with this grouped vocal saying try me, try me. So I'm gonna put it here on this Vox comp. And let's dial in the settings with the music playing this time. Know that you just my type, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me, just try me. 'Cause all I see is you, and there is nothing left for me. Let's see if we get a faster attack and see what it sounds like.
Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try me, just try me. Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try.
And it's just right there in these little dips of his vocals. You can hear it more on the lead vocals, not necessarily on these groups. But right here in this dip, you can hear that it balances out and it punches it through. So I'll play it again and just listen at this certain spot here.
Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore. Try.
And this time I'm gonna play it with it off.
Know that you just want time, girl, don't act like you're shy. Try me, just try me. Yeah, I know you heard it before, but I know you can't ignore.
And this time you can actually hear it dip down, so it's not keeping it in its place. And it's adding a little bit of punch, but not as much as it did with the drums, the master bus, and the piano, but it does work. Maybe if we had more grouped vocals, like a lot of them, like if we put on our all vocals comp, then you'll be able to hear it really punch through. All right, guys, I hope this helped. I hope this made it a little more understandable and showed you that how easy this compressor really is to use, especially since everything's just kind of being in these increments, like these set notches. Like you can't really mess up with this plugin. You got 3 ratios to choose from, 6 attack times, 5 release times, and you get an auto one, so it makes it a lot easier. And then you kind of just set your threshold to be between 2 and 4, and you really can't go wrong unless you're over compressing with things. But then again, hey, that can probably be the sound that you're going for, and that can always sound cool. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to like this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Keep creating music, guys.